Hey, all. Welcome to the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. This is the podcast where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country. We get them to share their stories, their proven lessons in leadership, their experiences overcoming, their journey to find mission and purpose. So today's guest, I'm thrilled with today's guest, is Andrew Coussens, who spent nearly 8 years deployed as a contractor for a classified U.S. government program that is still active in numerous areas of the world in support of the war on terror. He spent 3 years training partner nations in counter-terrorism tactics for the U.S. Department's global Anti-Terrorism assistance program. So, Andrew, thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Mike. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you've had quite an experience. I think since leaving these programs, you now serve as a consultant for the activity group that deals with field trauma solutions for the U.S. military, field law enforcement, things along that line. You've got a new book coming out called A Failed State, which is an international war on terror novel. You got a lot going on, Andrew, but tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, what you want people to know about you and why you do you.
Yeah, you bet. I think first and foremost, it's important to mention that I'm a dad of 3 children. I do the single dad thing on a regular basis. I took the job I took as a consultant because it gave me that latitude to spend more time with my kids since my wife's passing, and I really enjoy that. I didn't get a chance to do that as much. Deployed, 21 deployments over 7.5 years that I was coming and going so much I couldn't even tell you how much time I got to spend with those guys. But I love being a dad. I love being active in my kids' lives. So that's probably the most important thing to talk about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So 3 children. What are their age ranges?
I've got a 13-year-old who knows it all at this stage. I've got an 11-year-old son, and I've got a 9-year-old daughter. So about 25 months apart. They keep me pretty busy, keep me on my toes.
Yeah, so as a single parent, so you're operating essentially as a single parent, is that right?
Yes, sir. I pretty much do it all. My wife died in January of 2016. I have very little family in town, so I spend the majority of my time kind of doing whatever they need, me to do besides the meals and limousine services. I'm always at a sporting event of theirs or an activity. So, yeah.
Wow.
Doing a lot.
So let's unpack that a little bit, and I want to get to your novel because it's impressive. I love it. But there's a number of folks that serve this country and those that don't even serve this country that are single parents. And Andrew, you're talking their language right now. How do you create that balance? How do you find that balance between being, dad and bread maker and escort service and chauffeur and, cooking the meals? How do you do it? How do you stay sane through all of that?
Well, I think that's an ongoing struggle. I think you need to find peace with who you are in this place and time. I had to make some very profound changes in my life, and I struggle through that like a lot of people. I certainly haven't, seen the kind of combat some of the guys I deployed with have, but, I've seen some things, I did some things, and you've got to make that synaptic change between what your life was before and what it is now, and that definitely took some time. I would say at least a year plus, and during that time, I did see a therapist. I did conduct breathing exercises to combat anxiety. I think I had anxiety and other issues in layers because of my wife's passing. So it was really a day-to-day effort. And sometimes, like addicts say, I put one foot in front of the other, and each day was a new day, and I tried to start it out doing it right. So soon you get enough time past, and you look back, and you're like, wow, I did it. And I'm still doing it. So.
That's awesome. So is there something that you do on a daily basis that helps you get you into that state of mind?
There is, Mike. I keep a routine a lot like I did when I was deployed. I get up and fix the kids' breakfast, I get them to school, I hit the gym, I hit the office. I just keep that routine as static as possible. And I'll tell you what, that routine has helped me profoundly over the years. So.
That's good. I mean, that's great advice. I think that's great advice for any of us, right? We get into a certain routine, something that puts us in a mindset that we know we can tackle whatever comes our way throughout the day. So that's really good. Now, walk me through, because you mentioned, when your wife passed, it took you a year. You're still, obviously, I'm sure you're probably still dealing with some of this. But how did you find a new sense of mission and purpose? I mean, you're still involved with some very cool stuff, a consultant for the activity group, you're dealing with field trauma solutions. So you're on mission and purpose, but I think it's also important, how did you find mission and purpose back into family with the trauma that you experienced there?
Well, I think I integrated it before I even stopped deploying. I mean, I was set to deploy within 5 days when my wife passed, and that was an immediate shock. So I had to obviously speak with the folks at headquarters, talk to them about the fact that I didn't see myself deploying anytime soon in lieu of the circumstances. And then I actually clocked into work, I think, just a week later, just to kind of get back on mission, on task. Like you said, we had SHOT Show down in Vegas. We were showing some pretty high-profile clientele. Some of the products, some of the PJs, some guys from Ranger Supply Room. We had, we had a lot of military folks interested in this kind of stuff, and it was tough. I felt a little unstable, but I just wanted to keep on task, and I think in retrospect that did help.
So I want to unpack that a little bit too, Andrew, and share what you want, and, don't share what you, don't want to share, obviously, but going through that traumatic experience, you and I both know we've got a number of, friends, battle buddies, things like that have, in order to deal with the trauma or the situation or the circumstances, they begin to self-medicate. Did you deal with any of that? Was that also something that you had to overcome? Or were you able to just stay laser focused, said, listen, I've got kids I got to raise. I got to stay on mission and purpose. I don't have time for that.
Well, I think that's a fine line sometimes, Mike. I mean, I certainly didn't delve into any self-medication. I did spend a lot of time, feeling sorry for myself, like anyone would under my circumstances. I think at the time, my self-medication literally was the gym. I just felt I would have died without it. We spent a lot of time training, meeting physical goals while we were downrange when you had the time, and it was really nice to get in, an hour of CrossFit or an hour of weightlifting, or even some running, or some rep runs, which nobody thought they'd be doing after they got out of the military, right? But
right.
I just kept to a schedule so tight, and and there's vacillations in that. Within that narrow band as well. I mean, sometimes I drive 100 miles an hour screaming behind the wheel down the highway because I couldn't deal with some of the things that have been unloaded on me. And, I think that's human. You just got to refocus, and you got to realize that you have a greater mission than what you have, inside of your feelings in the immediacy of it all.
Yeah, and that's a maturity right there that you're talking about, this whole maturity to understand that your circumstances or traumatic events don't necessarily define you. They help shape who you become, but they don't have to define you. And I think that's what you're saying there. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when I hear you speak that's what I hear is you say, hey, listen, I had to understand that, my circumstances are my circumstances, but I had to move beyond that and understand who I am as a person to get through it. So, is that right? Am I close on that, Andrew?
Yeah, it is. It is. I was at SHOT Show, I think the year before. I think last year I took the year off and went to SHOT Show. But the year before that, I got to see new guys from my team that were on the floor there. John Albin of Goliath Tactical. Just a variety of guys that are doing multiple jobs, and having that touchstone and having that connection now that I was no longer deployed and no longer, spending time doing this stuff on a regular basis, it meant everything to me. It kind of brought me back into the now. I realized, I still had a mission. I couldn't do the old one, but I got a new one. A lot of these guys understood, where I was at with it all.
That's cool. That's cool. And you're speaking of something that's so important for everybody is having that support network. I think it's, two things we always talk about is action plan and support network. And I think you just nailed it with that statement was making sure you have a support network because, life will throw you curveballs and it's easier to get through those situations when you have people that you can turn to. So that's solid. That's solid. I want to switch gears a little bit, not a little bit, a lot, and really talk about this latest book. You've got a new book coming out here in October called A Failed State. This is this international war on terror novel. I've had the privilege of reading this, and I'm loving it. And I just got to say, Andrew, it's good. I mean, it is super, super good. So talk to me about how you came to write your latest book. I mean, walk our audience through this.
Oh, wow. I appreciate it, Mike. A lot of this started out as a autobiography, and a lot of it was done for, like you were saying before, self-medicated reasons. Just wanted to unpack what I had been through, discuss, my feelings about it and how I struggled with it. And then, there was a metamorphosis there. It became potentially a vehicle to help others in that same situation. People that have lost loved ones, whether they were, folks at home that had lost loved ones in combat, or whether they were people at home whose wives or husbands or, battled addiction and depression and a lot of the common problems of today. And that autobiography after submission to my publications review board did not fly. They didn't like the background information. They didn't even like any of the generalities about, what I was doing while my wife is at home battling her addiction and her depression. So I had to shelve that. And, I wasn't going to face that kind of scrutiny from my previous employer, if you would. So I had to switch gears, and fiction happened to be the vehicle I took, and it just flowed. I mean, I think I cranked out the original manuscript of I Failed State in, holy cow, in maybe 3 months. Because it was already on paper there in the autobiography, and I changed a lot of dates and times and places and events and circumstances, but in its totality, it's real. I mean, it's got, it's got a lot of the emotion that I felt during that time. The main character is an amalgamation of several guys I deployed with that were battling, similar circumstances. So,
no, I mean it's good. I mean your character. We read these type of books, and we think Jason Bourne, and it's Jason Bourne is kind of a flawed character, and you managed to take your main character Damian Collins, and what I love is he's very real, very authentic, struggles with anxiety. He's got a troubled marriage, which oftentimes, unfortunately is the case for, many who deploy. There's a custody dispute. He's part of this elite team, and he still has to be on mission, right? So he's managing chaos at home. He's working to stay alive in theater. And beat the bad guys. And the bad guys, for me, which was so intriguing about this, is he's fighting multiple fronts. And while we can say, that seems like it's crazy, I think there's many people in the country that are fighting multiple fronts. And you nail it using, the war on terror as a genre, but it's an emotional character, and I just want to say kudos to you for that. I mean, it's well done, super well done, and so I'm recommending to all our listeners that you get a copy of this book. I mean, it's stellar. What do you think people will learn from reading your book?
Well, first and foremost, I think that they realize the struggle is real. I mean, in their lives, they don't have to be deployed or in combat to face some of these challenges. I mean, holy cow, there's people across the country that battle it every day. Severe addiction, or they're married to a spouse that's battling severe addiction, depression, anxiety, PTSD. I mean, you name it. It's just a myriad of issues that people struggle with. But like you said, war is just another layer to it. It takes you away from your family. It really makes it difficult to deal with these things over long distances. So, it just adds another layer of struggle to it all.
I know, it's awesome. It's awesome. So where can people find your book? And where can they follow you? I mean, give us your handles, Andrew, so people can start following you. And, I mean, this isn't the only book, right? I mean, you got another one coming. I mean, by the time people get done reading this, they'll be looking for the second one. So where can they find you, and where can they find this book?
I think at the outset here, A Failed State is available on my website, which is www.afailedstate.com, and that is the hardcover edition right now. I think that's going to be initially in limited amounts, and then the ebook is planned to be released in late October, possibly early November, and then we're looking at paperback options and audiobook as well. But again, this is just the hardcover and just the initial offering.
That's cool. Well, be sure, I mean, everybody listening, be sure you visit afailedstate.com, order your book today. Be sure you get a copy of this thing. It is excellent. Now, you've got more books planned, is that right? Or am I not supposed to say anything about that?
No, it's okay. I've got a sequel to A Failed State because as any reader who looks through it will realize it kind of stops abruptly and there's going to be a lot of questions. But the nice thing about it is there is a chapter, a sample chapter of the new book in the back of A Failed State that kind of picks up where this one left off. And that book, I think, is in progress right now, tentatively called Relapse, and you'll understand why when you finally read a little bit about the continuation of this story. There's a lot about the second book that I'm really excited about because it develops one of the secondary characters, Loki, or his name is Iron Stewart. He is one of the team members, friends with Damian Collins, and teammate of him as well, and it delves into his life a little bit, and he's just such a complex character, based on a few guys that I deployed with. One of them was a ranger with that same call sign, and the other one was with a airborne. He was a former airborne guy that he's got a very rich outdoor background. Actually, they both do. They love being outdoors in the elements, and they grew up that way, and they continued life that way after they finished their military service. So, it's going to be exciting.
That's very cool. Very cool. I'm excited for you. It's cool to see that you are taking your experiences in life and putting them on paper, and not only are you creating entertainment, but when I read this thing, I'm like, man, that's a great tip. Things that I could actually apply in my life to work through some of the situations. I mean, it's well done. It's super well done. So just, bravo Zulu to you on that, Andrew.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, those of us that have served in different capacities, about 7%, I call it the 7% tribe. You went through a transition, and honestly, every day we're all going through transitions at some point. But, what bit of advice do you have for those who are getting ready to, leave service to this country, whether it's, in the military or for, some agency? What do you recommend that they do? I mean, what are some things that they can do so that they don't make some of the mistakes we see people make?
Yeah, that's a good one, Mike. I've got some awesome friends, guys that are still deployed. And I think I look at these guys as heroes. Quite a few of them have long military careers, and then they transition into this lifestyle because they want to continue that service, and they also want to support their families in greater fashion, which these positions allow. But that being said, I think that a lot of these guys are really afraid to find new meaningful work here. A few have, and these guys that have and have been successful and haven't redeployed again, they've got some pretty serious jobs and stay focused on those jobs. They have families they want to be around. They've made a commitment to that. Kind of like I did, but guys with a much deeper, much richer career than I had. One of my good friends, Mark Geist, was the author of 13 Hours. And if you want to talk about depth and having to deal with not only a new beginning, but also war injuries and rehab and mental issues. I mean, holy cow! There's a lot more folks out there that have seen a lot more tragedy than I have, and I see these guys as heroes. I always have. I think that some of the guys I deploy with are amazing. They've had storied backgrounds in the military. They're doing this right now and constantly deploying and juggling families at the same time. So it's tough making that jump. I alone can testify to that, but I know a lot of other guys that can talk about how that jump is just a huge, jarring change in their lives.
And a change that we need to be prepared for, right? I mean, it's like it's that transition piece that it's like a new mission, and so we've got to take time to pause and understand, what does our new mission look like, or what do we think it's going to look like? What's our action plan? What's our support network? And I think you've nailed it there. So I just want to remind our audience as we wrap this thing up that you can get a copy of Andrew's new book, A Failed State, at afailedstate.com. Be sure you check it out. It's an awesome book. Andrew, thank you, number one, for your service, for your continued service, for still being a frontline guy, for putting your experience on paper, but creating a great fiction out of it. So thanks for being a guest, brother. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure, indeed.